Wednesday Night Live, Wrestling Inc. across the world, whether it is YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, wherever it may be, you're locked and loaded and tuned in here as we're going to continue the night on. I'm Justin LaBar alongside Alfred Konuwa, coming off a high-energy AEW Dynamite, who back on the road. Of course, they were on the road last week, Alfred, in Miami. Tonight, Texas. And as we were just talking before we went on air, tonight starts the Texas love that the top two pro wrestling companies are giving. Obviously tonight again, seeing this crowd tonight in Texas for Fyter Fest Night 1, this Friday SmackDown in front of a live crowd in Houston, and then Dallas Sunday for Money in the Bank, Dallas again Monday for Raw, and then Garland, Texas, just outside of Dallas for Fyter Fest Night 2 next week for AEW. So Texas setting a great standard. That crowd tonight in AEW was just off the charts.
Yeah, it's a Texas 5-step, I guess, is what we're doing for pro wrestling. And if any of those Texas crowds live up to this crowd tonight, I think it should be some fun run of shows. I thought tonight's crowd was just absolutely fantastic. And I do think that AEW was great in rewarding that crowd with just a lot of, baby faces going over. The one heel who went over on this show was Ricky Starks, who was the hometown hero, and they loved Ricky. So I just thought this was a fun, crowd-pleasing show. I thought the crowd was one of the stars of this show. And it was really made the product seem like it's very hot, which it is getting hot. They're heating up a lot of their top storylines right now.
Now, before we get into Dynamite, we'll let everybody come in, take their seats as they're filtering in here tonight. If you're on the East Coast, it's 10:14. Thank you for staying up. If you're on the West Coast, you're still just getting you're still saying goodbye to that sunshine. I got to say, star of the show, Alfred, star of the show. What did you do? Did you take lunch in Hawaii with Raj and then take the flight back to LA? What is this? What are you doing here?
Listen, I've been putting Raj over on this podcast, so he sent me exclusively overnight this shirt from Hawaii from his private residence, and I'd like to thank you, Raj. No. This is a shirt from the Alfred Konuwa floral shirt connection. Nick Hausman is a big fan of these floral shirts, and he's been wearing floral shirts himself. So I just want to spread the love. Over the summer, you're going to see a litany of floral shirts, and they're just very easy to put on. They're nice and thin and breathable, and I like wearing these shirts.
Alfred's got on breathable Hawaiian shirts. I'm supporting a bar from Hell's Kitchen, the Meat Fiddler. This is why you have to see that. You can't just do the audio only version of this. You have to see this show. You have to breathe it. You have to smell it. You have to taste it. Hawaiian shirt, Irish bar, and Hell's Kitchen. How you doing? We're all kinds of flavor. All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about. Again, as we talked about, Texas getting a lot of love this week in pro wrestling with all the big shows. The next one coming Friday night, as it's going to be SmackDown returning in front of live crowds, and they're going to be at the Toyota Center, I believe, in Houston. And you have something to look forward to. I know I am one of these people, Alfred. I don't know if you. I am one of those people that I love sets. I love entranceways. They tend to run together in the last 15, 20 years because it's much more LED boards. I miss the days of props. I miss Backlash having swinging hooks, and I miss props. And I don't know if we're going to get props, but we are going to at least get a new redesign. So something to look forward to, as Stephanie McMahon sat down with Forbes, not with you, but sat down and spoke with Forbes and talked about how they are going to, and we saw some of this happen over the pandemic over the last year and a half, using more augmented reality, using even more LED, and she talks about how they're going to have a new entrance theme that is going to be used this Friday. It's going to be higher resolution. It's going to be more of a theatrical kind of presentation. So this is going to be happening this Friday for SmackDown, and I believe we'll probably also get something new as well Monday for Raw. Alfred, are you a set guy? Are you an entranceway guy?
Extremely, and shout out to my colleague Michael Lore, did a great job on that story. And yes, I'm with you, Justin. I miss the King of the Ring when they would have those guys open the doors, those two stooges who were dressed like royal people. WrestleMania 9 might be the worst WrestleMania of all time, but it was the greatest set design in the history of WrestleMania. And I am a big fan. I was talking about this last night, and I kind of took heat because I was defending Karrion Kross for his gladiator outfit. And my point was, I'm a big fan of pageantry in pro wrestling. Like, in order to be one of my favorite wrestlers, you probably have to have like a big pageantry type design. That's why I loved Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, Shawn Michaels. Like, that's part of the act and the gig. And these set designs, I just love them. And I wish WWE would go back to the time where every single pay-per-view had a particular set design. I know when it comes to expenses and whatnot, people say that, they want to save money, but I really do think you can add a little something and maybe make up for that in terms of interest in these pay-per-views if the set design was part of that. So I love to hear that they're going to have new sets, and I'm here for it.
Well, and it's not necessarily even an expense thing. I mean, these WrestleMania sets even each year, it's all about a sleek look. You know, they want to be able to project as much visual as possible. You know, long gone are the days of being able to see the black curtain. It's all a matter of just what wall can you walk from behind. It's all a matter of just that's the visual, and that's probably what we're gonna get more of. But yeah, I'm a big set guy. Growing up, I collected the Hasbro figures. I would build the me in the early 90s, I'm building the arenas in my room. I'm taking old black t-shirts, turning them inside out, making curtains. I'm stacking Sorry, Monopoly, and Clue to make the stage. You know, I was real big, and I'm always real big into sets. And I'm excited, and I'm with you. WrestleMania 9, they built a makeshift arena in the middle of the frickin' desert. This was not at the T-Mobile Arena. This was not at the MGM Grand. This was them occupying a plot of land, or they resurrected, kind of like Fyter Fest, the original concept before it ever happened.
Yeah, Jim Ross in a toga.
Yeah, Jim Ross in a toga, Bobby Heenan coming out the camel backwards. Yeah, I'm all about the sets, and I agree. And I'm not expecting much more other than more of the visuals, more of the LED boards. But this does get me amped up. I hope to see something. You know, actually, one of my favorite sets are, and it's some of the most simplistic ones, but it's what they used for, and actually kind of as a nod. It's why I like AEW's set. They did it for Mania 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. At least I love the old-fashioned tunnel that WWE did, and they had the lights inside of it, and you know, they had the glass that also, of course, is the famous shot of breaking the glass as he comes through for the it might have been Mania 13 against Brett, but the old-fashioned tunnel, you know, obviously it's not as big and extravagant as what they would evolve to for Mania 17 and beyond, but I like just some of those just felt. I don't know. I miss those. You know,
especially in Madison Square Garden for WrestleMania 10, where it's just, I always like that smaller entrance that they would walk through from Madison Square Garden and how it looked. So it did make it look a little bit bigger because the alleyway was so small there.
Absolutely. All right. So hitting some more of the headlines here as we let more people filter in. We don't want to start getting into the AEW Dynamite too much because people are still coming in as the show is just going live. So a few other notes to bring up here. Backstage news. WWE. It looks like a trade essentially offered as Aliyah, who had been on NXT and the Robert Stone brand. She's going to be going up to the main roster. It seems. Look like she's going to be going to Raw. And Mandy Rose, of course, last night popped up on NXT. So a very unusual 1-for-1 switch here.
Yeah, and good for Aliyah, first of all. I mean, we were kind of talking about this on the NXT podcast about how she has been in NXT forever. She's the only person from that Breaking Ground series that's still in NXT. And if this was her send-off, which it definitely looks like it was, at least she got that kind of hero send-off with the crowd cheering and her blowing kisses. I think she kind of knew in the back of her head that she was on her way out. So good for her for finally getting called up to the main roster, but kind of strange. But at the same time, I just do think that with WWE kind of rating the women's roster in NXT, which is a loaded roster, and they still have a lot of talent there, even with all those call-ups, I'm sure that Triple H and NXT brass were like, hey, you guys got to give us something for all these women we're giving you. Like, you took Shotzi, you took Tegan the week after she debuted, you took Tony, you got to give us something. And Mandy is definitely a name. Like, she might not be the prototypical worker that people were hoping for who gravitate toward NXT, but I do think, especially because she was kind of being paired with Saraya, I think they could have some good matches. Mandy Rose is really underrated in terms of what she can do in the ring. And it looks like a 1-for-1 trade. So interesting. And I hope WWE plays it up like that because they don't do enough with this draft concept. They just use it to switch around brands, but they don't really honor the fact that they have two different rosters or one person can be traded for the other. So I do like that.
Well, and something else the Triple H and the NXT brass are going to have to be, not thrilled about, but are going to have to just make do with, is NBC Universal's broadcast schedule with the Olympics starting here in about a week and a half. Is that Tuesday, July 27th, you can expect Olympic coverage on the USA Network. That's going to pose a problem for NXT, which is going to be bumped to SyFy rather than USA Network. So, again, SyFy, not that it's not in homes, but just anytime you have to bump your programming to a different channel than what people are used to, that's always problematic. So we'll have to keep an eye on what July 27th's booking looks like. Do they phone it in that week? Do they take do they go the extra mile on Raw to promote where NXT is going to be and what we'll see, and of course what the viewership's ultimately going to turn out to be?
Yeah, I'd be scared for that viewership. We just saw an example, a month of examples with AEW when they went to another night. I mean, wrestling fans and even television viewers are creatures of habit. They're used to their shows coming on at certain times. And that AEW number went as low as like 450,000, I believe. So it got scary low because they were preempted to another night. And I see something similar with NXT, which is unfortunate because they're just starting to build some momentum. They finally got out of that sub 600,000 slump. They got over 700,000 for this week for a world title match. And I just see them going right back down, which is unfortunate.
It is. And last story, this was an unfortunate story in the wrestling world. Former Ring of Honor world champion Michael Elgin, a real name Aaron Frobel, arrested last month for violating a protective order. Elgin's been in the news a lot over the last year or two. He was arrested on June 29th, most recently by police in Belleville, Illinois, and is charged with violation of a protective order against Angel Rodriguez. It looks like she is Elgin's ex-fiance, and the protection order against him, and you can read the full allegations. I'm not going to go into the whole thing here. You can read it on Wrestling Inc. But a lot of allegations about abuse that she dealt with in the relationship, and then what he allegedly was doing in terms of texting and such. Really disturbing stuff. So, but again, a former Ring of Honor champion, so worthwhile to note. You can read the full thing on Wrestling Inc. All right, let's jump into AEW Dynamite again. A very enthusiastic show. I didn't love everything, but certainly I got to say AEW put their best foot forward to making everything at least presented to seem like this is a big deal. Even the women's match that, again, was slotted in a spot of kind of that cool down period. Even that, when we get to it, they put their best foot forward, I thought, in an attempt of, hey, this is worthwhile to tune into. We kick off our super chats with Joni Shada Jenkins, 5 Canadian. Am I way off with saying that AEW is must see? ? It reminds me of WCW late 90s when you had to tune in to see who was showing up. AEW is killing it. Yeah, I mean, look, Alfred and I talked about this last week, and we mentioned on Monday. This is a very interesting time for both AEW and WWE, but maybe even more so AEW, because WWE had several releases, notable releases earlier this year, and those non-competes are coming up right when AEW is going back to the road. So it is this, must see on that aspect. And then AEW, Alfred, they've had a lot of stories that they've been telling for many months here, and some of them have gotten better play than others, but there's been history with most of these stories. And, I looked earlier at a tweet today that Jade Cargill put out. It wasn't even on the show tonight, mind you, but it was a cool tweet she put out, and she just listed she quote tweeted all the things that are on tonight's episode. And literally, when you read a bullet point, it's like, God, there's investment in everything they're putting out there. Like, there's something. There is a cliffhanger. Whether or not it delivers, different story each segment, but there is a there's a reason to watch each segment.
Definitely. In the realm of wrestling, I would say that must see is an accurate depiction of it, especially the way they present these shows with urgency, especially in a show like tonight where I didn't feel like too much was there that shouldn't have been there. I felt like everything felt like it had a place, even to your point about the women's match that they had, that you would theoretically think that because there's no story behind Yuka Sakazaki and Penelope Ford, that this would just be another match, but they even treated that with a sense of urgency. So yeah, I think AEW is doing a good job. Obviously, they have their flaws, some of which we talk about, some of which I'm sure we're going to talk about in this show. But I do think AEW as a whole is doing a great job as presenting this as a product that you really should check out.
So we kick it off tonight with Jon Moxley coming through the crowd, Eddie Kingston with him, up against Carl Anderson. So this got some New Japan rules type of feel here, New Japan title implications. And this was just a very physical battle. Alfred, I don't know about you, but it's kind of cool to see Carl Anderson in a singles match. We don't see that too often anymore right now. So this was cool. He and Mox just going at it, laying in there as you would expect these two would. Jon Moxley's going to end up getting the victory with the paradigm shift. And I got to say, I thought this was a great start. And really, it's we saw it with fans at the Daily's place, but much more convincing now when you have this arena of whatever it was, probably a plus 5,000 in this traditional arena setup. Moxley just doing his Mox walk with that wild thing playing and that closed arena. That felt it. I felt it.
It's shoving a fan to the side who was standing his way. Like, he's a wild man. And This is such a perfect song for him. It's such a great live event song. I love this entrance. It seems like he's such a big star. And so the show starts and Justin Roberts says IWGP, and everybody loses their minds just at the fact that we're getting an IWGP championship. So there was already excitement for this. I was a huge fan of the Machine Gun Carl Anderson character in Japan, and that's what we saw tonight. Even down to that, man, I rewatched the Stone Cold documentary on A&E tonight, so I guess this is top of mind. And he used that Owen Hart pile driver on Moxley, and it looked almost identical. And I was very scared for Jon Moxley, but thankfully they were fine. They were able to finish the match. Nobody got hurt or anything like that. But I did enjoy this match. I enjoyed the energy, and this was a kind of precursor of things to come. So I really liked it. I
enjoyed it. Of course, Moxley is going to take on Lance Archer, I believe, next week. So more Moxley to look forward to. And, and I made the point about the Wild Thing theme, and I want to bring this up. Chris Jones in the chat, he says, I'm not a fan of the Wild Thing theme, kind of corny. Chris, I can see where that, because when AEW started doing this, we started seeing them. We saw it with Jungle Boy and Orange Cassidy. They started purchasing rights to already established mainstream songs. And I do agree that there is a certain line of well, this is kind of corny. And famous WWE composer Jim Johnson is even on the record in an interview saying he's not a fan of wrestling companies doing this. WWE's done it. Well, of course. But right. And his explanation, besides it's going to put him out of work, is you already have an associate. You hear a song that's on the radio. You already hear it. You think about, oh, that's me making out with my girlfriend when I was in high school, or that's that was played at so and so's wedding. And I get that. And I had a little bit of that, but I'll say this. I think for AEW's sake, especially when something matches so well, like a Wild Thing with just the Moxley swagger, that works. And AEW, no knock on the people that are composing their music, but there's more generic music in AEW than there is standout. They have not yet, some wrestlers more than others. Darby has a really with that dun, 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 with his start. Britt with the Doctor, we'll see you now. But more often than not, I look like a Matt Hardy. A Matt Hardy who's had some iconic music that we all know after the first few riffs. He's generic track 3 with his music, and there's a lot of guys like that. So right now I'm okay with AEW finding a reason to, or finding ways to have music be identifiers for talent, and I think the Wild Thing right now for Moxley is just that.
Yeah, me too. I'm all for it. I'm all for a balance, because we all have the affinity for the classic wrestling songs, your $1 Million Man song or whatnot, Stone Cold song. But I am definitely a fan of mainstream music and pro wrestling, not only for the entrances, but even when they're doing video packages, some of the stuff that Tony Khan has bought, Tom Waits, and a lot of these mainstream songs that you hear. WWE had that Running Up the Hill classic package for Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. So when they can, I am a fan of pro wrestling doing mainstream themes. And to be honest, I was a bigger fan of Jon Moxley's original Wild Thing theme, where they actually used the Krogs, the Trogs version. I actually thought that fit him much better than this version. But I do like the kind of visual of these fans singing along and the entrance. I think it all comes together very nicely for Jon Moxley.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do too. How about, did you see Jericho's quote of the day I think it was on his podcast, talking about how they wanted to use AC/DC's Back in Black for an Inner Circle promo, and there was something else they wanted to do. It was Van Halen maybe. It's funny, I'm an AC/DC guy, and Jericho noted how AC/DC wouldn't even give them the time or day to answer AEW, but then he's watching an Applebee's commercial, and Back in Black's on an Applebee's commercial. He was kind of salty about that.
Gotta have that Applebee's money, I guess. I don't know why they didn't call him back. That would have been great, because that is what Jericho's going. He told me personally in the interview, he said that Back in Black, AC/DC, that's why Inner Circle wears black, so that would have fit.
There you go. Virgil's got that Olive Garden meat sauce money and Applebee's and that Back in Black AC/DC. All right, up next we get this is fun to watch. This is fun to watch, as Alfred noted. Texas boy here and Ricky Starks up against Brian Cage. So Ricky Starks is the heel if you're keeping score at home. He's the heel. Brian Cage is the face. Powerhouse Hobbs and Hook are at ringside. Taz is on commentary. This match starts a little wobbly, but they find their pace and footing. Ultimately, you end up getting to where Hobbs and Hook, with the aid, ends up getting Ricky Starks the win, the heel. But a huge ovation for Starks again, who is the local state boy here in Texas, specifically in this Austin area. I'm a little torn here, Alfred. First off, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, isolated as the two of them, they both are guys who you look at and okay, you can build a company around. Ricky Starks, a guy you can build around. He's got that young Dwayne Johnson, Rocky Maivia.
Yep.
Good looking. You want to just beat his ass, but you can also see that he could blossom into being a charismatic babyface when the positioning's right. Brian Cage, again, built like a brick shithouse. Again, you could big monster, also could be a big babyface. So isolated, I feel it. There's a story here, but I do think the Team Taz breakup and problems, I think they have been a victim of too much going on in AEW. I feel like there has not been, even last week, they had to hype this match, but what they showed us was something that happened during commercial or it wasn't live. And so I do feel like this is kind of they're just trying to get to a certain point. That point now being Ricky Starks is now the new FTW champion, but I'm not fully invested. I like both guys, but I'm not fully invested. I do feel like this has been kind of a leftover.
They've actually booked this storyline in reverse because they were doing weeks of teases with Brian Cage possibly leaving Team Taz. And then down the stretch, yes, they did treat this like an afterthought. I think it was like before the show was the segment they showed, which it did make it seem like this match wasn't going to be much. And that's unfortunate because this is a hometown guy. This is a match they could have built to the main event, to be honest. Given how into Ricky Starks this crowd was, given how into this match this crowd was, we see this is awesome chance. But yeah, this has definitely been treated like it's on the afterburner. And with Team Taz, as we've talked about on this podcast, there's a lot of stop and start, so it's very hard to keep track. And it was very confusing that they've built up Brian Cage as actually the babyface of this feud, believe it or not. But watching this, you would think, especially because Ricky Starks is half his size, that and the fact that he's a Texas guy, you would think that Ricky Starks is the babyface. So it's a little bit of a mess with this Team Taz thing, and they really need a big angle to get Brian Cage out of there and to just move these two parties apart.
Yeah, this definitely kind of is the conflict of, Ricky Starks was a big part of the promos and billboards for the show, again, to help sell tickets locally. But yeah, he's the heel and he's getting the babyface reaction. But it's, I don't know. And then where do you go from Brian? Where does Brian Cage go from here? Because now he's, again, one of the few who doesn't have an alliance at the moment. He is one of the few who doesn't now have, doesn't have that gang warfare to back up on. So what happens with Brian Cage? I definitely feel like Brian Cage and all of Team Taz, they are definitely ones who are going to benefit from Rampage having a second show each week.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good question. And I mean, even on social media, AEW had some great graphics for this match. You would think that, the graphics don't do it justice as how badly they did building up this match toward the home stretch. But that's a good question. Maybe Brian Cage will be one of those people who's, by himself. Maybe he joins. I'm just thinking that they won't help but pair him with Christian Cage. You just do something with the two Cages or something like that. And Jungle Boy's out there too. So who knows what they're going to do with Cage. But I do think, I wouldn't say he's like a blowaway promo, but I do think he's good enough on the mic to just be able to exist by himself right now. He's definitely an impressive looking guy. So I don't think he just quote unquote get lost in the shuffle being by himself. But that is something to think about.
One more babyface big man, because I mean Lance Archer, what's he? He's kind of like he's gone from heel to like baby. Yeah, so.
After attacking Dan Lambert, given that promo from Lambert, I think he's a babyface now.
Right, but still with Jake though. I don't know if having Jake. And I love Jake. I'm not even sure why Jake's there though, because all Jake's ever doing is trying to hold back Lance Archer very unsuccessfully.
Yeah. Maybe Jake needs to be with Brian Cage, and maybe that's the move. But Lance Archer certainly doesn't need Jake Roberts. And this is a couple times now, and more than a couple times, that Lance Archer has just cut these great promos. And it's like, yeah, so what the hell is he doing with Jake then? Like, he doesn't need a talker. This guy can talk.
Right. Peter Bahi, $2. Back in Black was Candido's ECW theme. Well, yes, it was. I mean, look, Paul Heyman has said if his father was not a lawyer, he would have never been able to get away with these. I mean, look, between Candido with that, Tommy Dreamer with Allison Chain. I mean, they just
RBD Pantera walk.
Yeah, I mean, New Jack with it. Yeah, go on and on and on of how they made all that work. All right, so Ricky Starks now your FTW champion. So we'll see where we go from here. Does this continue with Brian Cage? Does he find a new place to go? So we'll keep an eye on that. Up next, we get they're showing the recap of Malachi Black making his surprise debut, taking out Arn Anderson and Cody Rhodes last week, and then Cody comes out to the commentary desk. He's all fired up. He's pissed off. He takes the microphone, goes to the ring. He not liking Malachi Black. Could have just made a phone call. You don't need to show up and take the head off of a 62-year-old man. We see Black on the screen. He's telling a story about watching an old man put down a horse that just has lost its fire and passion. And he looked in the eyes of Arn and Cody last week, and they've lost it. Cody says, "Come on down, take a look again." Lights go out, Black appears, and Black does not take Cody's head off here, Alfred. This is just an all-out brawl, and they have the security, they have the refs, they have Jerry Lynn, everybody's out there, and this crowd in the palm of their hand chanting, "Let them fight." So something that is only a week old in terms of its animosity between these two got this crowd all into it.
Yeah, I thought Cody was phenomenal, particularly when he was on commentary cutting that promo, because he channeled his father. That was a Dusty Rhodes style promo that he cut, where if you watch a Dusty Rhodes promo, Dusty Rhodes only breathes when he has to. So he'll do, what the fuck? And like that's what Cody was doing. And I thought that was great. And he went down a little bit in terms of his in-ring promo, but it was still good. And I thought Malachi Black's promo, I liked the story he told. I think he kind of started to lose the crowd. I think that promo should have been done in person because you were hearing some faint what chants, which that's one thing I'm not looking forward to with these live crowds back. But I thought the segment was a home run. I like that there's all this intensity. I like that Malachi Black kind of said, those people were cheering when I kicked you in the face. So, this was very well done.
Yeah, I mean, I was hooked. And, something interesting with Black is, we've seen obviously now several guys come over from the WWE world, but there's always a change. There's always some new wrinkle. Miro came over. He wasn't out doing Rusev Day. I mean, he altered some things, whatever. I thought it was very interesting. If you had just flicked on TNT at the right perfect time when they took the Black promo full screen and he's back there with black curtains and smoke, it is identical to an Aleister Black. And I kind of like that. And that had to be on purpose. This was not an accident. I kind of like the fact they literally just picked him up and put him right over here and just picked up with where he left off. Same look, same ambiance, everything. Again, gets me that much more excited. It seems Cody probably whenever they have Black's first match, what the presentation is going to be to the ring, because that was something I was so into in WWE. I'd be very curious to see again how he and Tony Khan and all the AEW producers put that together.
Yeah. I think the thing with Aleister Black is they do realize that this man was a creative guy. It just they didn't get to do enough with it in WWE. And if you saw that stream he did, he was kind of going over all these ideas he had. So I think they're just saying, "Hey, man, this sounds great. We're gonna help you out, but we want you to take the lead creatively." So clearly, he's just picking up where he left off, and hopefully, he gets to do more.
Absolutely. So we get a backstage. We see Alex Marvez. He's walking with Tully Blanchard, and he runs into Santana and Ortiz, and they basically kind of are, Tully, you're pretty brave. You got a bullseye on your back, and you're walking around here by yourself. And they proceed to grab Tully and look like they're getting ready to, give him a beating, but then they basically just scare him and then let him go and say, put the word out to your boys. An interesting. This stood out to me. I mean, and I don't always necessarily note every backstage thing we see, but I thought this was of note, Alfred, because you don't often see this in pro wrestling. But this was the baby faces grabbing the old man. I mean, I had all belief they're just going to beat the hell out of him, and so I thought this was a nice little touch of still being a baby face, but logically grabbing the veteran leader of the heel group that you're opposing and sending a message just by scaring him. I thought this was a nice touch and made Santana Ortiz look pretty badass.
Yeah, me too. This was like they went from super heel because they two guys putting their hands on an old man. It's like, wait, you guys are supposed to be the baby face, and then them saying we respect our elders and walk. It was very Batman like, where Batman doesn't kill people. Like, I'm letting you off with a warning, he's good enough to where he's going to threaten you, make you think he's going to kill you, but then he's got some type of justice about him. So I really did like where this went because if they would have beaten up this old man with a pipe. Like, who's cheering for that?
Right. All right. Up next, Tony Schiavone in the ring. He calls out Hangman Adam Page. Maybe babyface pop of the night. Maybe even beyond what Ricky Starks gets. Maybe beyond Darby later. Maybe beyond Britt later. Hangman Adam Page, just huge ovation. And he's quickly interrupted by Don Callis, the Young Bucks, and the Good Brothers. One of the Bucks gets in the ring, ends up talking some smack. Page decks him. Now it looks like Page is going to be outnumbered, but here comes the Dark Order to come out to even the odds. Kenny Omega surfaces, and ultimately we get a match made here, a challenge made, where it's going to be Hangman Adam Page in the Dark Order up against Kenny Omega and his guys, a 5-on-5 elimination match with the stipulation being, Alfred, if Hangman Page wins, he gets a world title shot and the Dark Order gets a tag title shot. But if Omega's team wins, no title shots for any of them. So this really, I mean, they are just milking the inevitable here, which of course is Omega versus Page.
And it's perfect. It's great pacing. I'm a big fan, and pro wrestling does not do this enough, of the team versus team matches with stakes. This is very reminiscent of Nexus versus WWE, which, even though it won't be remembered very fondly because it did have a really weird finish with John Cena getting those last two pinfalls, was a very hot match, very reminiscent of the Canadian Stampede even, which I noted on Twitter. I like how hot people are for this feud, and I like that this match is going to have stakes to where now you're even mapping out the Young Bucks path in terms of them potentially defending the tag team titles against the Dark Order. And you're probably going to get Hangman Adam Page pinning Kenny Omega and him justifying getting that title run, and that's exactly what should happen. And also, I very much enjoyed the reference to that viral clip. You're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy. It's a very viral, popular clip that the Young Bucks did reference tonight. And just look it up. It's very funny.
Well, and a nice reference by you to the Canadian Stampede, July 97, 515 that you're referencing, the Hart Foundation versus, just the conglomerate of the Alston LOD and everybody on that. Because you're right, I often still think about that. That's some of the loudest ovations I can remember, and it really had it really kind of had an Olympic kind of feel to it, of a country versus a country kind of feel to it. So that's a great reference. So when do they did not give any specific dates? There's a lot to promote. We got Fyter Fest Night 2 next week. Of course, they're back on the road. There's All Out, which is usually the Labor Day weekend. There's the big show in Queens on September 22nd. So, what's the timeline here, Alfred? I mean, do you do the 5-on-5 at All Out, and then 2 weeks later, the results, assuming Hangman Page and company win, it's Page and Omega at the big New York show? How do you do this?
I would love it done like that. I don't know if you do the 5-on-5 at a pay-per-view. Maybe they could get that done before the pay-per-view, but I definitely think that Hangman Adam Page versus Kenny Omega should be done in the New York show. I do think that, just given how this storyline has been done, which I think is very good, and how hot it is, I really do think that they should peak it at the New York show in that big Flushing Meadows, because it just needs something big. And I do think that they can go in terms of All Out with something else, whether it's another one-on-one match, whether it is that 5-on-5 match. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I would like to see that Flushing Meadows show be the show where it's Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page.
Our buddy Bernie in DC, maybe the 5-on-5 at Rampage. That's not a bad thing for the Rampage debut, of course, here in Pittsburgh.
Very good
Pittsburgh, August 13th. So yeah, that would be something to help anchor that debut show. All right, so that's set there. So we're on the pace to get what we think is going to be Page versus Omega. We just have to wait and see the timeline of it. Up next, we get a Jericho promo backstage. Jericho cutting the promo, not caring about MJF and whatever, and a really abrupt but cool timing of a Sean Spears and MJF just breaking the door down right to Jericho's right. And the chairman, Sean Spears, just taking the chair, Alfred, right to Jericho's throat. And just, holding him down, beating him with the chair as MJF cuts a promo. And the first of the 5 labors that Jericho is going to have to overcome if he wants to get to MJF is going to be against Sean Spears. I believe they said next week. And the stipulation being Sean Spears can use a chair, but Jericho cannot.
I like this. I love the rollout and presentation of these 5 labors, and that I fully expect that, every time Chris Jericho gets one of these labors, MJF is going to be there. Oh, well, now your next task is this. I really did like the kind of smarmy little, oh, by the way, this is going to be your first match. And so this is great. This is great in terms of the presentation of how they're going to put Chris Jericho in these precarious situations. So, that's a very good idea. It ties into Sean Spears' character as a chairman, and it gives Jericho this distinct disadvantage to where he's going to continue to get softened up to where by the time he gets to MJF, and I think when MJF wins that match, it'll be against the kind of wounded Chris Jericho.
Another one where it's where does that culminate? All Out, New York show.
Yeah.
Fun to watch. This is kind of it's got like a Die Hard 3 feel to it. Jeremy Irons, Simon Says, he's got Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson running all over New York. And
good reference.
Yeah, I like this. I feel it. All right, up next, history here. 23 years feud. Matt Hardy versus Christian Cage. Some stats for you. Christian 5-0 in AEW. They make note, Christian has never beat Matt Hardy one-on-one. In fact, the last time these two apparently had a one-on-one TV match was on Raw in 03. Think about that. That's wild. Many matches on TV and on house shows and tags, of course. But here we go. So Matt Hardy versus Christian Cage. Matt Hardy, of course, congratulations, newest addition to his family. Another little one now in the at the Hardy compound. This is kind of a match of just near falls all over the place, Alfred. We get Christian. He blocks the encounters a twist of fate. He hits a spear, kick out at 2. Christian gets a frog splash, another near fall at 2. Hardy does a superplex from the top rope, near fall at 2. Hardy blocks the kill switch, low blow, hits a twist of fate. That's a 2 count. Hardy goes to the outside, applies the leech submission on the outside. It looks like actually Christian's going to be counted out, but this is where the match went off the rail on for me. I didn't quite get it. It looks like Christian's going to be counted out. They get to 9. He pops up, jumps in, and then just kick and hits Hardy with a kill switch, and 1, 2, 3, he wins. It was I don't know if there was like, I don't know if there was a time thing or what, but like this match was really cool, seeing these two guys and all that history that was set up with the stats and the near falls, and then just like guy could barely get up, gets up at 9, pops in, then hits his finish, and that's how he beats Matt Hardy for the first time ever on 101. I was a little off on that one, and then after the fact, the Hardy office comes out, they have the numbers out, outnumbering Christian until Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus come out to help even the numbers and scare them off. Again, cool. I love both these guys, veterans. I love the history. Again, love the near falls. They lost me on the finish.
You know why this finish was especially surprising to me? And this is kind of a knock on AEW, where I was like, wait, no outside interference? Wait, what? What? It's just going to be a finish? So I was pleasantly surprised that there was no outside interference in this match. And yeah, it did kind of go to an abrupt finish. But I will say, I've got to commend these guys. They worked their asses off. It's almost as if they were very self-conscious about, like, this is not going to be a WWE match. I know we're two WWE guys, but we are going to give our all for you guys. And they did. They did a lot of stuff in this match. And I didn't know, like, I guess, yeah, Christian is undefeated. He just doesn't feel undefeated in AEW, but it's good that they're kind of promoting him that way, because maybe they're setting him up for a title match down the road. Maybe he'll get the title match at All Out. Who knows? But they are making it a point to talk about how Christian keeps winning. He is yet to lose. And I really commend these guys for how hard they work, because you know that they're feeling it, and they're going to be feeling it based on the wrestling bump card that they both have. But yeah, they did work very hard in this match.
Absolutely. Super chat, Kayla Mick, $5. Could we see Braun or maybe Daniel Bryan versus Jericho in these matches? Yeah, Kayla, I think everything's on the table, but Daniel Bryan's status is a bit of a mystery. Braun, we know, in fact, is a free agent, still under the 90 days at the moment, so can't pop up today. But yeah, I mean, we kind of alluded to Braun maybe. You got these 5 levels that Jericho's gonna have to go through. Wouldn't that be quite the 5th level? But I mean, of course, maybe that doesn't work. I don't know, because you got to figure Jericho's going to beat everybody and make it. So maybe you don't want that to be the debut of one of these guys. But yeah, there is potential for anybody to pop up. And I believe Tony Khan somewhere in one of his interviews has been quoting that he's got, okay, you like Malachi Black? I got even bigger surprises, which is just kind of like, again, intriguing to us as fans, but also it's like, how many people are we going to put on this roster?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I do expect between Braun and Daniel Bryan, I expect at least one of them to end up in AEW over the next month or so. And really, I think if it is Braun, and I do like that idea, because you floated that before, and I did like that in terms of Braun being one of the 5 laborers, especially they're talking about Hercules. He does have that kind of Greek mythology look to him. This might be one of the rare disqualification finishes where Braun, loses by disqualification to Jericho. That could be something that they pull off, because they don't do too many disqualifications in AEW. And if Braun wants to get heat, that's a good way. And you already have all the heat in the world. If you want more of it, a disqualification finish would be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this might be an irrelevant question, because we don't know Daniel Bryan's status. For all we know, Daniel Bryan might have a brand new contract with WWE, and they're just waiting, as they return to the road to put him out there. But as best we know it, as we sit here right now on Wednesday night, July 14th, Braun we know is free agent. Bryan potentially is as well. So we'll go with this question here from Kayla. Alfred, who moves the needle more for AEW? And I ask you this on the context of Braun Strowman, obviously, former world champion, or more recently a world champion, obviously a larger than life, turns the head in the airports kind of guy. But I could also see being received as like, this is another WWE, this is the WWE fee-fi fo-fum guy, we're going to boo him. Versus Daniel Bryan, who, if Daniel Bryan pops up in a Chicago and an all-out type of crowd, and just some of the matches you could see Daniel Bryan have with people we haven't seen him against, that's on the AEW roster. Like, I mean, but again, I think Braun's a bigger namesake in the mainstream right now. Like who are you putting your investment in? Who are you giving $1 million contract to?
That's a great question. It's a tricky answer. If we're talking long term, and it just depends on how far they're willing to go. If they're willing to go all the way with Braun, there might be some pushback, but I do think that long term that might move the needle more than if long term they were to go with Daniel Bryan, especially because, like, if Daniel Bryan showed up in AEW, huge pop, and immediately you're going to hear, oh, the great matches Daniel Bryan could have, and then it'll peter out. Hopefully they're going to be able to keep Daniel Bryan interesting and whatnot. But if Braun comes, we're going to get not only the Braun is in AEW, you're also going to get the polarizing debate Why is he here? People are going to be like, I know I'm going to be one of the people defending him, and I'm going to take heat. And there's going to be people saying he should be here. People saying he shouldn't be here. And it'll lead to a lot of conversation, which in this world we're living in the social media world, I think moves the needle more when you have polarization. So Braun Strowman, would be more of the polarizing figure coming in that I think is going to get more people talking. Daniel Bryan will be a feel-good moment for all these wrestling fanatics that I don't think will sustain. Yeah,
I tend to agree. I think Bryan's got a few great fantasy dream matches you could try to build around, but you're right. Once the bell has started and ended for those, where else are we? And also just looking again back to you used a phrase a minute ago with Hardy and Christian to the bump card. Daniel Bryan's got a lot more miles, a lot more check marks on his bump card. He also has to bump more for the style he does versus Braun, who does not need to leave his feet as much. I tend to agree. I think Braun would be the more polarizing, move the needle. If you're trying to grab more casual fans to get yourself eclipsed over that 1 million viewership mark weekly, a guy who's more recently been against Brock Lesnar, been in WrestleManias more recently, I think Braun does that. So yeah, very, very interesting super chat and question there, and I think it is something we're going to be discussing with more validity sooner than later.
The broadcaster in me wants Braun to be an AEW because our podcast would be so much fun if we had Braun in AEW.
I mean, and then what's his name? I mean, I'm assuming WWE owns the Braun Strowman name, so what's his name? Yeah. It's not going to be. Is he Adam?
He's been going by Adam on Twitter, which it's such a human name. It's got to be something other than Adam.
Yeah. What if he comes in? Maybe we're missing the obvious. 5 Labors of Hercules. We're talking all this Greek mythology. What if he comes in with a Greek mythology name?
It would fit. It would absolutely fit. It would fit his character in terms of, because they're going to have to do more than just make it about his wrestling, because he's not a bad wrestler by any stretch, especially for a big man, but that's not what his bread and butter is. So as like that big giant, that's one of the reasons I like that idea so much. It does seem like that Roman Coliseum feel that they're going for with this storyline where, okay, fine, like Game of Thrones, they just bring the big guy who just comes in there and you've got to go past this big guy to get to MJF.
For sure. All right, Tony Schiavone back in the ring. Out comes Britt Baker. She cuts a great promo talking about being the baddest bitch on the block. Thumbtacks, blood, whatever. It all stops. Vicky Guerrero, you got a last name. It's forever relevant. Nyla Rose, you need this title to be relevant. So cuts a really good promo. The crowd's behind her. Britt talking about she's, Nyla's top of the food chain. Britt, she's off the menu. She's special order. So really good promo here. Again, kind of the same Ricky Stark situation here. And Britt's going to be in that Ricky Stark situation in a few weeks when they get here to Pittsburgh. She's still technically coming out of the heel tunnel. She's still technically dressing in the heel locker room. But I mean, we are just about there of everybody's just cheering her. And even in this match against Nyla, I mean, Nyla's also a heel, but fully expect the Garland, Texas crowd next week to be fully behind Britt. So I think we are just about officially turning Britt Baker. Yeah. She could still be the sassy, baddest bitch, Britt Baker, but I mean, she's going to be booked on the babyface side of things here.
Britt Baker's a babyface. The AEW can do everything they want, have her come out of that tunnel, but if they intend to make her a heel moving forward, it's like the Sixth Sense, where they're the last ones to find out that, Britt Baker is a babyface. This crowd loved her. You were talking about all the reactions and who got the biggest reaction. And yeah, Hangman Adam Page is up there, but I would put Britt Baker right there with him. It might be a tie between who got the biggest reaction, because they were eating up everything she said, the line she said that you mentioned about, I'm off the menu. They would just pop for it, and they absolutely loved her. She gave this big warm hug to Tony Schiavone, and it wasn't even like a patronizing hug, the way she's been treating Tony as a heel. So they're gearing up to make this woman the biggest babyface possibly in the company, and I think she's doing great. She cut a great promo, and I mean, they're ready to make her a babyface. This is the Britt Baker they wanted at first, that the crowd kind of rejected, and as soon as she found this character, they're all in. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the normal sarcastic way she treats Tony is the way she just treated me since 2014. That's just her, that's her sarcasm. That's all I get. All right, up next we get Wheeler Yuta versus Sammy Guevara here. This match not too long. Sammy's going to get the victory, no surprise. But Wheeler Yuta getting put over on commentary. Has been kind of a hot free agent that's out there. So getting some love on commentary, and Sammy Guevara also getting love on commentary. Jim Ross, perhaps for the quote of the night, Jim Ross saying Sammy Guevara, he's hotter than donut grease. And then throughout the match, Sammy. You can always tell Jim Ross is so transparent with who his favorite wrestlers are. You can tell he loves Sammy Guevara. You can tell he loves John from the Dark Order. He was over the moon. What's John?
John Silver?
John Silver, yeah, from the Dark Order. He just goes over the moon with that guy as well. And Sammy Guevara is the same thing. I'll tell you the problem I have with this. This might be one of my least favorite things on this show, even though it was a good match and everything, because they're putting over Wheeler Yuta. And even after the match, Sammy Guevara shakes his hand. You can tell that they might be invested in this kid long term. But as much as they're putting him over, this was a Sammy Guevara show. This did not make Wheeler Yuta look like he was even in Sammy Guevara's league. This is a showcase for Sammy Guevara. And I'm happy that they were talking up Wheeler, but I would have liked to see a little bit more from Wheeler Yuta. And if they were going to do a match like this, don't spend all this time putting him over, because now I'm just like, this is the guy you guys are talking about. It's so great.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't, Wheeler Yuta's probably on this is probably he's probably getting paid for the night. I don't think he's on a contract or anything. Sure. And look, I've been kind of actually critical of AEW in the past, where I thought that they've, on matches that were meant to be squashes, let's profile our established talent, in this case, Sammy Guevara, I felt they've given the opposition too much sometimes. Right. So I'm kind of happy to see a little bit more of a traditional, let's give some respect to who this opponent is. We're giving him airtime for a reason. He deserves to be here in an AEW ring, but let's not forget Sammy Guevara is the guy we've been building around for 2 years. So I'm okay. I was okay with this. I feel like they've given guys and girls who should have been squashed have been given way too much. Oh, yeah. Way too much in the past. So I was okay with this, but I certainly don't think this is the last we're going to see of Wheeler Yuta based upon just the way they talked him up. Don't know what his contract situation is, but don't think it's the last of them. All right, another one here. The women's match I mentioned earlier. This match again kind of sandwiched right in that spot of like cool it down before we get in the main event. Yuka Sakazaki hadn't been on. I think they said like 16 months. If I remember, that was the stat right up against Penelope Ford. But this match actually, for what it was, Yuka looking good. She hits this finish, this magical girl splash off the top. I'm not gonna, it's certainly not match of the night, but this was actually a pleasant surprise. I was kind of sitting there not really thinking much of this, but I'm watching it. I was like, all right, well, okay, so good on them to try to keep their spot.
Yeah, the crowd really seemed to connect with Yuka. She's just such a lovable person in terms of how she's presented, and she's kind of smaller, so that I think helps. And I thought this was a very good match. It did get awkward toward the end where she hit that helicopter splash, and I think they just kind of got their signals crossed, and you can tell there was a little bit of confusion there before she hit that magical girl splash. But this was a good match.
It was.
Better than it had any business of being, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what we get coming off of this. And then finally, we go into our main event of the night, Coffin match between Darby Allin and Ethan Page. Coffin getting brought out to the ring. Tony Khan apparently couldn't afford druids. We just get a bunch of guys and, looking like they're working the Macy's counter or something. They bring the Coffin out to the ring. Ethan Page to the ring, Darby Allin to the ring. Darby Allin has a steel plate attached to his chest, so little shades of Goldberg, WCW. First time Darby goes to the Coffin, there's Scorpio Sky is inside of it, so he pops out. That then cues Sting. Sting comes out. We get Sting and Scorpio Sky fighting in the crowd, picture in picture to the commercial. They're fighting in the crowd. We got steel steps. We got turnbuckles being taken off the ring. We see Ethan Page. He hits the Ego's edge from the middle rope, dropping Darby flat on the steel steps. Looked painful as all hell. Finally, Darby ends up going to the top rope with his skateboard, hits the skateboard to the back of Page. That knocks him into the Coffin, closes the Coffin. Darby Allin is your victor. And then for one final nail in the Coffin, Darby goes up, just does the Coffin drop, which anybody that does not know what a Coffin drop is, it's literally Darby goes up to the top rope, does with his hands to his chest, and just flings himself and does a giant back bump onto this wooden coffin, explodes the wood. So he just dives. I mean, a hell of an ending. I think first off, I think Darby's I've said this before. Darby's insane. Yeah. Which it is to his credit of why I am attracted to his TV time. But dude, you're in your early 20s still, and I just wonder, like, how long can you sustain this? That said, now that I'm being the old curmudgeon, this was a fun match for what it was. But Alfred, I did also feel, we talked about this had a little bit of a manufactured issue problem of they were trying to really force us into understanding that this is going to be in this Coffin match already, and they were trying to play off of history that was pre-AEW history. They don't have video necessarily to show us of. I felt even the timing of this match tonight. This match didn't start until like 9:45 Eastern time, so they had a hard out at 10. I felt like maybe they should have cut the women's match, or maybe they should have cut some other things shortened in the night to give this match an extra 5 or 10 minutes, even if it meant Darby taking an extra minute towards the end before he does a coffin drop. I just felt this thing was forced. I felt this thing was rushed, and they were trying to get to those ending spots quick.
Yeah. Early in this match, as it was going, I looked at the clock and there's 10 minutes left, and that's really not enough time, I think, for a suitable main event. Even though this was a fun main event, I mean, they even did the thing with the ropes, and Darby had the thing on his. But this is how Darby Allin is saying. He shows up with that plate on his back. He used it for like a springboard coffin drop, but you don't need a plate for that, right? The guy's gonna catch you. You're gonna hit the guy, and when he does the big dive, I think that's when he needed that plate on his back. It's when he's gonna dive backwards onto a coffin, and that was just such an insane thing to watch. There's been countless Darby Allin spots where my heart is in my throat for the whole time I've been doing that. And I don't think it's fair to just dismiss those opinions as old curmudgeon, because I just think that we know enough about the wrestling business to where people who wrestle that style, it does not age well years from now. And I know that's part of his charm. That's part of what makes Darby Allin such a big star, is that he is willing to pretty much kill himself for these people. But if they could just space that out, like that was a crazy bump that he took in that. And I mean, I'm sure there's ways that there's mechanics behind that coffin. And so they made it to where it wasn't as bad as it looked. But my goodness, what a bump that he took with that coffin drop.
I don't know. It looked like it was made out of wood, and the wood exploded.
Yeah, it's exactly what it looked like. I mean, who knows what type of wood, or if it was plywood or whatnot, but that did not look like fun.
You can only gimmick wood so much. I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, good. Again, Darby is an attraction. Good on him. He's hopefully he's making nice 6 figures. I mean, good on him for this guy who has a story of being homeless, living in his car. But brother, you got a lot of life ahead of you. I think you're like straight edge and drug free, so it's not like you're going to be using some pain pills or some drugs to ease the pain. I mean, just take it easy. Just take it easy.
He's also not the biggest guy, so
no. But he's not the biggest guy. But I think that's probably why he feels he has to do this to overcompensate. And it's, I mean, look, he just main evented and was the ending spot on a fire hot show tonight. So I mean, he's earned his keep. Every time I watch him, I just go, ugh.
Yeah.
But hey, we'll see. It's his body, not ours. But overall, though, I mean, this is a very entertaining show. Fyter Fest Night 1, Night 2 next week in Garland, Texas, just outside of Dallas. Again, Jericho versus Shawn Spears, Lance Archer versus Moxley, several Britt Baker versus Nyla Rose. There's at least one more that I'm missing, but I mean, AEW, they got some momentum here. After they're back, they're live, they're on the road, they got some momentum. I've been very interested to see what do the numbers do tonight. I don't think they're going to go over 1 million. They did have NBA competition, but man, I got to think this is going to be at least 800,000.
Yeah, and they did go down for last week's show, and this is stiff competition from the NBA. As my Bucks keep it too close for comfort, you guys need to come on, wake up. But I don't think it's going to even come close to 1 million. Maybe they go over 900,000. It's not like there was a lot promoted in terms of like a big world title match or FTW title match. I don't think is going to be that big of a draw. Darby Allin is clearly a draw. This coffin match, I'm sure there was intrigue for that. So maybe they approach 900,000. I think around that range.
For sure. All right. Well, we thank everybody for tuning in here tonight. We thank you for the super chats, all the other comments going on. Of course, if you're listening the day after on the audio only, we appreciate it. Of course, you should be watching the live video so you can see Alfred in his Hawaiian wear and all the other good visuals that we have here. Please do all the things. Do the like, do the subscribe, leave a comment. It helps all of us. Nothing tomorrow night. Friday night, there'll be SmackDown. Sunday night,
we'll be having pina coladas live on air.
Pina coladas.
The fans coming back with pina coladas.
2 pina coladas Friday night, and then Sunday night, Alfred and I are back for Money in the Bank. I have a feeling that is going to be up to that point this week. That is going to be the most viewed show that we do. I mean, this is going to be huge. Money in the Bank, back to live crowds. We certainly are expecting some surprises and some returns. So Sunday night, make sure you bookmark it. That after Money in the Bank, you are here live on Wrestling Inc.'s YouTube, Twitch, wherever. Make sure you are staying up with us Sunday night. That is going to be one Alfred and I are going to be digging into. There's going to be a lot to unpack. And then never mind whatever news headlines bust out otherwise in the wrestling world that we'll have to talk about. So a lot to look forward to Sunday night. And then we're back on Monday for Raw, and around the hamster wheel we go. Alfred, thank you very much. Anything else you want to plug?
Well, yeah, listen, we talked about my guy, Michael Laura, breaking that story with Stephanie. He can't be the only Forbes guy breaking stories around here. I exclusively revealed the action figure Ultimate Edition Sergeant Slaughter on Forbes. So guys, look at that. I had a lot of fun writing that. The good people of Mattel sent me this for my troubles. Look at this beautiful toy.
Wow.
I haven't opened it yet. Comes in this beautiful collector's edition box ahead of Comic-Con. This is going to be one of the big items. So I talked a lot about the toy industry, which has exploded over this pandemic. People buying all kinds of toys because they have to spend more time with their kids and they really don't want to raise them. I'm just kidding. But they have made a lot of sales with these toys. And Mattel has this beautiful Sergeant Slaughter toy. I got it before Zack Ryder, which I'm sure it's going to piss him off. And so you guys check out my article about the Sergeant Slaughter Ultimate Edition action figure. It's really a beautiful toy and a collector's item for years to come.
Hell yeah. You should have flown here to Pittsburgh last weekend. The show that I was on with Big Cass, the meet and greet prior, we had Sergeant Slaughter in the meet and greet.
Oh, that would have been great.
You could have came and, he was there, Lex Luger. You could have got some real Americans, Sergeant Slaughter and Lex Luger to sign that. That's awesome.
Next time, for sure.
So wait, Mattel sent that to you?
Yes, Mattel sent it. They wanted me to take a look at it because I was going to be writing something about it. So to just kind of see what it's all about. And I think it looks amazing. I think it looks like a great toy. And they're really, they're really doing a lot of these exclusive launches to kind of help their growth. And I think it's a good idea and a good strategy.
Alfred Konuwa, ladies and gentlemen. Follow him at This Is Nasty. He's on Forbes.com every single week. He's here on Wrestling Inc. every single week doing the podcast. He's the partner in crime for me. Going back many years, we're happy that we've took our show on the road, and here we are on Wrestling Inc. Again, thanks to everybody. We'll be back Friday night after SmackDown. SmackDown back on the road. Houston, Toyota Center, new set. We'll see what happens. Good night.